Hello and welcome. My name is Anthony Morel, and today I find myself in the beautiful city of Las Vegas, Nevada. And I have the pleasure of doing an interview today with one of our great leaders, one of our great brokers, one of our great producers, and one of our just great team members, Mr. Colton Via. And so, without further ado, Colton.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate it. Welcome to Vegas.
Yeah.
Great to have you in the office always. Yeah, I don't know exactly how to introduce myself other than, I've been with PAC for about 2.5 years now,
Yeah.
probably somewhere around there as the broker in Nevada. Been very fortunate to be in this role and,
Yeah.
work with you and the rest of the leadership team through the process. So
Yeah.
it's been really fun and exciting, just kind of stepping in and growing Nevada with the rest of the PAC team.
I love it, man. And that's really what we want to talk about. As we were just sharing, this new series that we're doing here is a series where we're really highlighting some of the victories. We're really highlighting, some of the pitfalls and some of the just kind of the all around that goes with you. Number one, you being you, but then also as a part of PAC. And so the first question I have, just so that our audience can get to know you a little bit more, was where were you before joining the team?
I have a little bit of an interesting story.
Sure.
I'll make the long story short.
Okay.
So I've been in real estate, started off flipping houses back in 2014, 2015. Got my real estate license in 2017, beginning of that year, and just kind of made my way up the ladder, I guess. I, started a small team, grew from there. I ended up opening my own brokerages, or my own brokerage, a small kind of boutique shop, and that went really well. I was fortunate enough to be able to exit that, and after a couple little transitions to some larger kind of corporate brokerages, if you will, just wasn't really happy within that role. I was kind of a managing broker, and then stepped away from that and ran a team. Just didn't like being part of that corporate wheel,
Sure,
I guess.
sure.
And it was right about that time when you and the guys launched PAC out in Southern California and reached out to me about growing it to Nevada. So that was my story of the last almost 10 years. And
so let's go back a little bit, right? Let's go back to 2017, almost 10 years now.
Yep.
You get your license, and you've been in the business. You were doing some flips and things like that. If you could rewind yourself back, like you're selling in 2017, 2018, what were some of the early struggles that you were experiencing in your business?
Yeah, it's definitely a different time in the world and in the real estate business. Early on, I think it's always difficult to have that first domino fall for a real estate agent, right? How am I going to find my first client? Once I find the client, what do I do with it? So, I spent the first 6 months of being a licensed real estate agent, just open houses after open house, hitting the phones, trying to find that first lead. And it took me 5-6 months to actually find it, but I knew there was light at the end of the tunnel, and it's just about being persistent. So, I think that's always a struggle again with agents early on. Where am I finding my business? I can't just rely on my network as a new agent, my sphere. What path do I choose to go source leads, source clients, and what kind of discipline or work ethic am I going to have behind, putting that plan in place? I think a lot of agents, and I was victim of this as well. I want to do all things all at once, right? But I think, it's very important you pick 2 or 3 that you can actually execute on and just go all in and see it through.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, right? Because one of the questions that I wrote down was like, what did that day-to-day feel like? I mean, that like you said, you want to do kind of multiple things, but then also you're kind of keenly aware that maybe it's that open house, maybe it's that, like, what were the 2 to 3 things that for you locked in on, that you started saying, hey, you know what, I'm generating results? And I know this might be tough for you because, again, we fast forward 10 years. Colton is somebody that is capping with our company every single year. He's got amazing projects going on. He's leading, he's helping agents produce at high levels. We'll talk about it. But like, just kind of circling back to that time in your life, what's the day-to-day, like the breakdown?
Yeah, so I was fortunate to have a mentor early on that really taught me the importance of having a database.
Okay.
Building that database and focusing on that. That is my business, right? So, early on when I first got started, obviously I'm reaching out to my friends and family. I'm making sure that I'm inputting everybody I know in my database, which was just a spreadsheet at the time. But other than that, it was how do I grow the database, right? So for me, open houses were probably my number one source of business.
Okay.
I was doing at least 3 to 4 a week back then. At minimum 3, that was my standard I set no matter what, rain or shine, summer, winter, it was happening. During the open houses, I was hitting the phones, right? I was either, creating a farm in the neighborhood. I would try to focus on a certain area of town and do open houses around there as much as I could so I could get to know the neighbors. So, I'd door knock ahead of time, try to get their contact information, pull lists from the title companies, things like that. And then, I'd get into calling expireds and for sale by owners and things of that nature. That was never really my jam. Like, I didn't enjoy that. I know it's a huge point of business for a lot of people.
Sure.
But early on, I just knew I needed to talk to as many people as I possibly could. So those were really my areas of focus early on. Again, I think a lot of agents get in this habit of like the shiny object syndrome. There's this new tool, this new lead source, whatever the case may be. And
you were talking to people.
I was talking to people.
Yeah.
And not to say I didn't get distracted, because I definitely
Sure.
did, right? Here's this new marketing thing, right? Let me go spend some money on this. But the reality is, it's doing the simple things consistently that really produce the best outcomes.
Yeah.
So thankfully, because I did have some mentorship and guidance early on, I really did my best to just hone in and focus on that.
Well, and if you think about it, right, again, I keep kind of going back to this, like it's been like a 9-10 year window, but if you really think about it, a lot of those, because I see your numbers, I see the production that you do, and like I said, you're always capping, you're always kind of hitting that 150 plus K marker. If you think about it, and with other projects going on, a lot of those conversations, I'm sure, building that database, really laying that foundation, still serves you today.
Yeah, it really does. I think that real estate is a super unique vehicle, right? Because obviously, at the end of the day, we're selling a house, but we're really selling ourselves, right? And it's the value that we can create for other people,
right?
Whether they are looking to buy a house, whether they're looking to buy a commercial building, or whether they're looking to make a connection that I can help create through someone else in my network, right? That was something early on that I kind of a key principle of mine was being a connector. How do I create? And I always say this, I know people and I connect them to opportunities. That's kind of my philosophy that I live by, is not in how can I help you buy or sell a house? How can I help you buy or sell a commercial building? Who can I connect you with that's going to add value to you?
So that's good. I love that, because what our audience probably just found out, and what I've known, is that I know your business transitioned into that commercial space. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about what that looked like for you and what made you become an expert in the commercial space. So much so that I'll have agents that reach out to me and they'll be like, if I got a commercial deal, I'm going to Colton. And it's like, you're the guy.
Yeah. Well, appreciate that, by the way.
What was that like, that transition? Because I know for myself, at least, whenever I heard commercial, I was like, that's good. Those are buildings. It's different. It's the same thing, but it's different in a way. So I'm curious to hear from you.
I don't know, man. Maybe it's my personality. I just like a challenge.
Okay.
It was something that I saw that was a challenge to take on. I had to learn a new skill set.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I found it's not really that different. It comes down again to the relationship that you have with somebody. And commercial is a lot less emotional. It's much more numbers based, which is, my brain kind of thinks that way, logically data driven. So, if I can understand how to evaluate a commercial property, because you're running the numbers differently than you are on, comping a house, right? Then that is going to serve me in a number of different ways, right? I can understand if it's associated with the business, that's attached to that commercial asset, how I'm evaluating that business, and so on and so forth. And it just provides, again, another layer of value, an extra tool in my tool belt for my clients. I would say, I don't know, maybe 25% or so of my business is residential now. I still do a fair amount of residential business, but the commercial stuff is really what I've found to enjoy more, because I can think about it from a different kind of perspective and lens.
Well, and it's great, right? I think, what we like to talk about is realty was sold for people with vision. And I think when we get kind of pigeonholed and we're not into, like you said, I'm going to do, I'm going to stick to this lane, and like I'm going to do the houses type of thing, and that's all. Well, it's like, but you also said to your personality, it's just what feels good. And I think that ultimately what we learn is, or at least what I've learned is the higher levels of income, the better levels of service, the more tuned in we are to our businesses, ultimately when we're listening to ourselves and we're, really moving into that vision. So I love it. So thank you for the background. Now let's talk about decision moments. So you kind of had mentioned there was some, like some corporate-y type of, involvement there. And you were just kind of looking for something that was just a little bit more. Talk to me about the decision to join PAC, and because, ultimately, and Colton is now one of our founders PAC members, but Colton is the reason why we are here in Nevada. It's because of his vision. It's because of his entrepreneurship in growing the team. And I know that you've had a lot of support and help, and we'll talk about that. But talk to me a little bit about, all right, I'm doing it.
Yeah. I've never looked at myself as a realtor, a real estate agent in that sense, more of a real estate entrepreneur. I remember one of my early mentors asked me, what is it that I want to make out of this career? And I didn't have a clear answer, but I knew that it was something more for me than just selling houses. Not that there's anything wrong with it. Obviously, that's the foundation of our business. Sure. But looking at it, through building an ecosystem, a culture, something bigger than just myself. You can't be all things to everyone, right? If you want to grow in life, if you want to sell the most houses, you can't do that on your own. You need a team, right? You need support. Sure. You need an admin. You need marketing help, or whatever the case may be. So that was kind of the genesis of it. I wanted to be able to help more people, create a culture and an environment that I wanted to be part of. And that's, when I started my first brokerage back in 2020, right during the pandemic, big question marks on if that was good timing or not. Obviously, it worked out well for the real estate market in the end.
Yeah. You've had that mindset, though.
I had that mindset, right? And then, when I went more into the corporate side of things, again, I just kind of felt like a cog in the wheel. Not that there's anything wrong with that model and those companies. I just didn't feel like I was the creator anymore.
More of like that legacy type of model, right, versus now you're building, you're creating.
Right. Yeah. Just there wasn't the freedom, the flexibility there it's what I thrive on.
Right. Right.
And I think that God always leads us to a certain point for a certain reason, right? And it was during that time where I was trying to figure out what my next move was. Yeah. Do I start my own brokerage again? Right. Do I do more of a franchise model, or, what is that going to look like? So I'm really looking at all these options at the time. And that's when you and John, Jason, all reached out to me about, where PAC was looking to grow to, Nevada being one of those markets. Obviously been in a couple other states outside of California at that point. And it was just the perfect opportunity at the perfect time. Yeah. What you guys had created with PAC was a sense of structure, was the brand, was a lot of the back end support, the training, all of that stuff that I didn't necessarily want to have to go think through and build it out again myself. As a broker. I didn't want to wear every single hat again, so to speak. But then it was the culture, right? Like we've obviously known each other for a long time at this point. Yeah. So there was a sense of comfort, I guess, or certainty rather, I should say, coming into it, because I knew what I was getting into. With the relationship that we've had for so long. So it was just this kind of perfect blend of being able to have all the freedom, the flexibility, build the business of your dreams, right? Yeah. But then also having the support and the resources available to tap into and be able to grow our own kind of unique culture within the larger umbrella of what PAC is.
I love it. So, I have a question for you. Okay, because I've always found it like when somebody like Colton goes out and they open up a state, I think it's like you're planting the flag. It's just. I remember first starting PAC, and I remember thinking this question like, well, what's the worst that can happen, right? Like, well, what's the worst? And also, I was like, a lot of hallucinations kind of around that, like, oh my gosh, well, what about the, I don't have this figured. I don't have, and naturally you kind of work through things and things of that sort. I'm curious for you, like, what were some of the big hallucinations, or like, did you have that feeling or that thought process, like, what could go wrong here? Like, what was some of the biggest challenges that I've never asked you this, by the way, so I'm just curious, from your perspective.
At that point of life for me, I had sold my brokerage to a larger company, and unfortunately things didn't go as planned. And I lost quite a bit financially during that process. And I was kind of picking up the pieces, so to speak, at that time. Who do I want to be when I grow up? Like, these sorts of questions I'm asking myself. And it took a hit to my ego a little bit, because I'm asking myself questions like, did I make the right decision? Thinking through what could have been different about it, how I could have pursued the opportunity or not pursued the opportunity. And at the time, I'm asking myself, do I start my own thing? Like, do I even want to do that? Do I have the abilities to do that? A lot of things that were going on inside my head at the time. So when I decided to move forward with PAC, I knew again that there was a level of comfort in the relationship. I knew that you guys had my back.
Sure.
I still obviously had to put in the work, roll up my sleeves, and do this thing, and it wouldn't have happened without a fantastic team around me here that help with so much, right? And, you can't be all things to all people.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lesson in that for realtors as well. Is, again, you can't be all things to all people. You can't overanalyze everything before you make a move, right? There's this like analysis paralysis realtors often have. I don't know the answers to this. I don't know how to write a purchase agreement or a listing agreement, or how to have this conversation, right? Comes a point where you just got to throw the line in the water if you want fish to bite.
Yeah.
So just jump in, and the rest will figure itself out, right?
Right.
So, for me, I was struggling with a belief in myself at the time, but tapping into PAC and the family, really, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
It really gave me a new sense of confidence.
Yeah.
Again, and the ability to go create and build and grow.
Awesome. I love to hear it. So, and so much good just comes out of that, right? You're right. It takes people. And I want to talk about that a little bit, right? Yeah. So what were some of the first wins you start, you're with the team now, you've opened, the brokerage is now open in Nevada. Like, what were some of the first wins, maybe some of the first, few people? Obviously I know, and I'm looking back at 2024, you guys closed 50 plus 56 transactions. You go back 2025, you close over 125 transactions. There's growth that's happening, but I want to go back a little bit more, like first few wins, first couple people that joined, some deals that happened, just that you can remember.
Yeah. So, early on it was myself and a handful of believers, right?
Yeah.
Folks that are still with us today. So, I had been for a year just kind of pulling back the curtain a bit. I'd been trying to recruit Karina, who runs all of our operations and compliance for us now. Yeah. Been trying to recruit her to come work with me in some way, shape, or form for at least 3 or 4 years, wow. Before that. She, in my opinion, when it comes to real estate knowledge, compliance, just being a solid operator is one of the best in the business. I did a few transactions with her in the past, and she made me work pretty hard through that transaction.
But it was done right.
It was done right. She did it for the right way, the right reasons. Had not just the knowledge, but the integrity for her client and for the industry. So I knew that she was someone that I wanted to work with.
Yeah.
And again, at that time, God leads us all to a certain place for a certain reason. It was perfect timing for her as well. She saw the opportunity with PAC. She saw that what I was looking to create, and she jumped on board and helped really create that with me.
Right.
So we wouldn't have we wouldn't be where we're at if it wasn't for her. And then, a few agents early on as well that said, you know what, I love the idea of what it is that you want to build here.
Yeah.
I see where PAC is at now. I see the opportunity here. Like, let's go. I'm going to jump in.
Yeah, and I want to add on to that because I remember being a new agent right here in Las Vegas, right? And I vividly remember, going through a compliance situation and going through a transaction coordination situation and genuinely having questions.
Right.
And the energy that I received when I asked those questions actually led me to breaking down, crying, thinking, because the person literally told me, I can't believe they gave you a real estate license. Right. And I'm sitting here going, this is my first transaction. It's my second transaction.
Help me out here.
Yeah, help me out here, right? And I would say that now I have the pleasure of knowing Karina. I can see why you share that. And it goes hand in hand with the growth. Going from 56 closings year over year to 125 plus closings, having that type of support and being there for those agents in the time when there's a question and having that certainty, it gives you confidence.
Right.
It really does. And I know that it gives the agents in Nevada confidence.
Yeah, it does. There's something to be said about being able to go to your broker, your compliance officer, and having a true resource there, right? Like that's the job, that's the role, to be able to help guide you, navigate you, not to serve it up on a platter for you, but provide it as a teachable moment, right?
Right.
It's the old philosophy, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, he's gonna eat forever. And that's really, what we try to instill in our agents is be resourceful, right? Come to us with the problem or the issue at hand. How are we going to help you solve this so that next time it comes up, because it inevitably will, that you have the tools to, go be self-sufficient and take this on yourself. And if not, we're always going to be there for you, right?
Sure.
Like, today I had one of our agents text me, hey, I'm, looking for a specific contract or agreement I've never used.
Yeah.
Where do I find it and how do I, how do I use it?
Yeah.
And this is where it's at. Look through here. And, at a high level, this is how you need to go about putting this agreement together. If you have any other questions, let me know, right? But just knowing that they can reach out with a text or call to somebody in leadership to get some guidance is super important.
Well, you talk about support and you talk about systems, and so often, and I'm going across the country and I'm meeting with different agents, recruiting meetings, or really at this point, it's just how can I help meetings type of thing, because I'm just genuinely concerned for their, for helping them build the business of their dreams. And so often I hear, well, I'm in this office. I'm in this office, but really I don't have a connection. I don't know who is it. And I'll ask, well, you have to have a broker that you can go to.
Right.
And a lot of times now agents don't work in the office as much. So, well, no, the broker's at the office. Okay, well, do you have a broker you can text? Do you have someone you can call? We talk about support and systems, and, just me knowing how you operate, knowing how responsive you are as a broker, adding on, Karina as well, that level of support and that layer of service. It's like, and I'm just going to say it, if you don't have that level of support in your brokerage right now, that's something that really helps agents move the needle forward.
Right.
It's one of those things where if I have somebody, like you said, that I know on the other end is going to get back to me, they're going to call me, we're going to be able to have that dialogue. They're going to see that I'm going in the right direction, not do it for me, but teach me. That lives on, not just for the time being, but it goes forever. And my biggest growth, as you're saying this, I'm literally saying, when I finally got that in my business, I had my biggest growth. Exponential growth. Yeah. So it's good. It's really good. So mindset shift, right? So let's talk about the mind. So what's changed about the way that you think, as a professional in the last 2.5 years?
Really, it's systems.
Okay.
How do you build a system that's not reliant on people, that anybody can plug into and have success with, right? people aren't perfect. We're gonna make mistakes.
Sure.
Myself, yourself included,
Sure.
right? But how do you create a business in a box in a way that someone can tap into and get all the support, all the resources that they need, so that they're not reliant solely on me as the broker or on Karina for compliance, right? How do you have other resources for them to tap into? So it's really focusing on a systems approach. Not to like overanalyze it and overcomplicate anything, but you have to have the process there, right? Because when something goes wrong, or an agent is kind of living outside of the guardrails, you can point them right back to the system. Right. And it's the ones that really dedicate themselves to learning it and using it and tapping into it, that see the most growth. Like you said, when you finally had the support that you had.
There's no doubt about it. And I think of here in Nevada, I think of Jordan, right? I think of Deandra. I think of these agents that are capping, and they're having these victories. You can definitely see that. You can see that they're plugged in, that they are they're working with their leadership, and they're really looking to grow as not just looking to, but they are growing as professionals. Right. Which is really, really cool. Systems that you're working on right now, currently within the Nevada structure, that you're excited about.
So I'll touch on that, and I'll go back to your last point as well. Something a focus for mine is kind of cross-pollination. Opportunities that will coexist between connection points, right? Again, being a connector, I have somebody that may need a resource that somebody else has, whatever that looks like. So, one thing that we're working on building right now is more of a centralized dashboard, if you will. Okay. So here's the opportunities that are at hand, right? So yes, it may be active listings or buyers that are looking for homes or buildings or whatever the case may be, but something that is necessarily may not have an immediate monetary value right now. Have a client that needs a connection to, I don't know, use a contractor for simple, something simple to refer to. Who has a contractor that does X, Y, and Z, right? So we can create kind of these internal referrals and just grow that network and provide more value to the network. That's something for me that's super important, because yes, we can say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you're buying this new house. Here's a list of our approved vendors, but there's a lot of things outside of that are going to not fall on that list. Right. Sure. You don't just need a repairman or HVAC or whatever the case may be. Maybe I need a certain attorney, right? Because they're going through some sort of situation, whatever that may be. Who do I connect them to within my network that provides value each way? Yeah. And really, it's building kind of social credit in a way. They look at me, or they look at Karina or Dee Dee as this is the person that I go to whenever I need assistance, right? And then you're always top of mind when the need for your service actually comes up. Yeah. Well, I think that's extremely exciting, and it's a great point, especially when you're dealing with your clientele and really being able to provide the highest level of service possible in getting people in communication with other like-minded individuals. So it's great, and trusted resources and things of that nature. I do want to talk a little bit about, and whatever you would like to share on this. The last 2 years, last 3 years, since you've joined, you've capped. As a result of capping, you've helped other individuals cap. As a result of that, so not only is it the capping portion of it, which goes back to your production and things like that, but you've also earned your way into the Founders Pack. Right. And ultimately what that means is that when an individual is joining the company, whether it's in California, Nevada, or somewhere else, an individual is closing a transaction. Basically, we put a percent of that into a pile, and we divide it by the members of the Founders Pack. Now that number is, it's growing, and as we add individuals, and we're going through that process. But I'm just curious, for you, being a part of that Founders Pack, what did that mean for you? And
you know, just I really want to tap into the fact that you're capping, you've made the founders pack, you've really, established yourself as a leader within the company, and you've accomplished some great things. What does it mean to you?
I mean, for me, it's more, say it's less about me and more about how many other agents I can help to achieve that as well, right? It's kind of, showing them that this is possible, that there's a pathway to do this, and the more people that I'm able to help get there, the more people that they're going to be empowered to go help more people to do the same, right? So it's more so for me just about kind of that legacy in a sense that I'm creating that way, of just helping people. How do I help the agents within PAC to learn, to grow, to achieve their dreams, to be able to make more money, spend more time with their family, have a better life. And the Founders Pack itself is something that's fantastic because it's just a check that shows up, every quarter without me having to think about it. So, there's a financial incentive there that makes it great. It's cash flow, it's mailbox money in that way, right? But what it really represents is helping others to grow as well.
And on that point, Colton, because I follow you on social media. If you don't follow Colton on social media, it's interesting because I wrote down here lifestyle and freedom. And, on one hand, we're talking about helping others and legacy and things like that. And then on the other hand, I know a lot of the cool projects that you're working on right now, because just through our conversations, a lot of really high level, just big, cool projects that are going on. But I also see you, which is kind of cool, I see you doing a lot with your family. I see you traveling a lot. I see you spending a lot of time with the kids. I see you having a lot of fun too. And for me, there's this work style versus lifestyle. And so how has lifestyle, I'm curious, changed for you in the last couple of years with your new work style, if that makes sense?
The philosophy work hard, play hard rings true for me anyway. Ask my wife, she'll say I work a lot, right? And when I work, I'm head down. I'm trying to be as efficient as I can be with my time. But when I unplug, I want to be able to fully unplug, right? Not be a victim to having to respond to any text that's coming in at any minute. Like I want to be present with my kids. I have 3 kids, right? So when we go on trips or go to sports games or whatever the case may be, I don't want to be that dad that's always distracted and not living in the moment, which is honestly very easy to do in real estate.
I was going to say, I mean, you probably just described a good handful of real estate professionals.
Probably most realtors, right? I mean, we've both been in this business long enough to see how everybody works. And, the reality is not everything is a fire. We're not operating on brains here. Yes, it's a big financial decision for people to, sell a house or whatever the case may be. But we have to be able to protect our time as best as we can. And then again, it comes back to the systems and the people around you, right? Being able to have people that you can rely on that can step in and fill that role when you're gone. So, that's...
And the support.
The support too,
I mean, it's
right?
huge,
Yeah, like, I can tell you, I've been a broker now since 2020, so 5 years. And, I feel like I'm really knowledgeable when it comes to compliance and contracts and law and all of those things. However, I have people around me that honestly are more knowledgeable in a number of things than I am, right? So when somebody comes to me with a specific question, I don't have to be the one that answers that question. I can always defer it to somebody that is going to provide a better answer than I would, right? So, when I'm working with a client, for example, I'll always have a group text thread with my team members, right? And I always set the expectation early on that I'm always going to be available for you. However, I have, people that are also resources for you. It's an additional value proposition for the client, right? I can't respond to you on a moment's notice at all the time. I'm not always going to have the answer to your question. However, if you ping my team, either one of us is going to have the answer for it, or we're going to find that answer for you. And you're going to get a better answer than if you were just relying on me as a single realtor working with 10 clients at a time, because my hair's on fire and my head's spinning.
Well, you know, and I really appreciate you saying that. And for the individuals that are watching this interview right now, I can tell you, Colton, like I have fallen victim. I have been victim to
We all do, right?
you know, to the dinner table. You know, it's 7 o'clock, and yes, as much as I want to be present, and as much as I want to, you know, be there with the family, and in my mind of minds, it says, oh, you know, this is where I am, and I'm, you know, 10 toes down, right? But I've also been in that position where I was a real estate agent, and I could not take that phone call.
Right.
I could not you know, do that. And I appreciate you saying that, because I look back to that time and I go, wow, I'm so happy that now my mindset has changed. And it's because of being around individuals like you and so many other great individuals within the company that have shared with me, okay, you know what? No, I can be where I want to be and I can be present. And I think that's kind of, you said it perfectly. That's what I really see from you when I follow you on social. I see the, you know, and I know there's probably a, you know, meme out there, you know, balance is, it's like,
yeah.
You know, in this business though, like you said, I think you're either like, you're like 99%, you're going crazy because you're, you know, you're always trying to find that next deal or sell that next house or do, you know, versus learning to work as a team, work in a collaborative fashion, build a database, have good support in leadership, all the things that really say revenue share. You know, you earn revenue share, you earn your founders pack, things like that. You know, so really creating a business out of it, commercial, real estate, having multiple funnels. I really see it from you and your lifestyle and what you're doing with your family and things of that nature. So I just think it's really cool.
And I will say, just real quick, going back to that, you know, I think it's almost important that you go through that process. I don't think it almost is. It is very important you go through that process of, I need to be responsive for my clients. I need to work hard. I need to do all these things.
Sure.
Because that hunger is more of an innate ability. It's something you can't teach, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're willing to put in that effort and that work early on, over time, your brain is going to start to program itself to understand that, hey, I can do these things, but the trick is I don't need to do these things, right? It doesn't have to be all me.
Highest and best use.
Highest and best use of time. So that just comes with growth as an individual, as a person.
Okay.
Understanding, in my opinion, you know, understanding when it's time to kind of level up.
Yeah.
And now I start bringing on support, right? Like you have to work the system before you can create it.
Right.
You have to understand the ins and outs of a transaction before you can, you know, throw it on to somebody else, because now I have expectations. I've set a standard for myself.
Sure. That
now this individual needs to maintain that standard if they're going to be a representation of me.
And you're allowing them to go through their growth process as well. So it's a success, right? It's win-wins.
You know, I think happens way too often with team leaders.
Sure.
Right, where they say, hey, I'm going to start a team. I'm just going to bring on all these people, and not provide them the support and the guidance, or, you know, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And they flounder. Right. So that's why you have to put in the work.
I just had this conversation yesterday. What are you
Yeah, it's a conversation that I'm sure you and I have quite a bit.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, but if I go through it and I understand it and I can put it into practice, and now I can hold others accountable to that practice, it takes on a whole different meaning.
Yeah.
Whole different meaning.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, like, what do you think is the hardest part of growth? Is it becoming, you know, what do you think is the hardest part of growth? I'm just curious.
Being brave enough to take that next step. You know, I'll say, at least for me, I've found myself in a lot of rooms with a lot of very influential people, you know, whatever that may mean. And at times I'll question if I should be here, right? Do I deserve to be in this room? Do I have enough, you know, knowledge, or, you know, the capability, you know, can I keep up a conversation with this person? You know, a lot of stuff I do is within the healthcare space, right? I run a board of the largest healthcare coalition in Nevada, and, you know, my board consists of doctors and CEOs of banks, and, you know, and large publicly traded companies, and, early on, I was definite imposter syndrome.
Huh.
Why is this real estate guy, running this organization, this nonprofit organization? And then it's the reframing of your mind to understand what my unique capabilities, and what exactly am I bringing to the table. I'm bringing a whole nother perspective to this table, right? I may not have an MD or a PhD or whatever behind my name. However, I still bring value. And just empowering yourself. It's that mental talk that for all of us, right? We're our biggest we're our biggest haters,
right?
And it happens still all the time, right? But kind of have a motto that you've set for yourself and a standard, and you're going to show up professional, accountable, and knowledgeable in all things you do,
right?
Then it empowers you to go into those opportunities. When it goes back to growth, whether it's meeting somebody that may have a better pedigree than you or more money in their bank account, or jumping into another field, for myself, healthcare, and understanding I don't need to know how to do open heart surgery.
Right.
I need to know how to run an organization, set up systems, to lead people.
Which you do.
And that I think is the key, right? Just being brave enough to take that next step, and then committing to putting in the work to grow in that new role.
I think that's fantastic. You're an agent right now. You're listening to this conversation. You're feeling a little bit inspired. You're feeling motivated, and yet the reality is once this tape ends, you're stuck. Right? You're like, oh, okay.
Sounds great. What do I do?
Yeah, well, my mortgage is due tomorrow. So what would be your best tip of advice for somebody that's in that position, that's maybe in a slump, they're stuck, and they're just looking to get out, and you know what? They're looking to earn that type of income. They're looking to maybe get around more support and just, put themselves in a better position to succeed. What would be your advice for them?
Well, I'll tell you where I was at when I got my real estate license.
Yeah.
And how it relates to this. So, I was flipping houses for a couple of years, came from a construction background, and I found myself in a situation where I got burned on a couple flips. Just had my first son, who's 9 now. And, I had this little baby boy. I'm living off of credit cards, not knowing how I'm going to pay my mortgage payment. And my wife said, maybe it's time to get a job, and have something consistent coming in. And I haven't had a job in my life since I was in high school, right? So to me, it was a gut punch. It was a reality check. Like what I'm doing isn't working. So I'm online, I'm Googling options, looking at job opportunities and things like that. And I just had this epiphany. I'm like, I can't do that. I can't work for somebody else. I need to see this thing through. And I saw a Groupon ad for, discounted real estate training, and hey, $79, let me do this thing. I knew that I didn't have any time. I needed, mortgage was due, and have to get my license, have to find a client, have to do all this stuff. So I jumped on in, right? I burned the boats. I had a conversation with my wife. I said, hey, will you give me one more chance? Will you believe in me one more time?
Wow. And
see this thing through? And, she committed to it. And I jumped in. I got my real estate license as quick as I could. And, so going back to your question, it's really burn the boats. Believe in yourself and keep it simple, stupid, right? Like,
that's great.
Again, there's an abundance of opportunities out there, and we live in an era where you can jump on Instagram or TikTok or whatever and see all these successful realtors and business people and driving their nice cars and all this stuff, and we try to associate or compare ourselves with that, and it just kicks us down another notch, right? Why am I not there? If you just put the blinders on, commit to a simple plan, find yourself a mentor, and some people that you can confide in, and kind of have a mastermind with, share ideas, but commit to your plan. Right? And do what you enjoy doing. In real estate, there's a million ways to skin a cat. So whether that's cold calling or door knocking or open houses or whatever the case may be, what do you enjoy doing?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I learned very early on. I don't like to cold call. I like having conversations with people, face to face, like building relationships.
Yeah.
So, I realized I'm going to start getting out there and networking. What groups do I want to associate myself with? And that ended up leading me to starting a networking group. We had 700 members in it. And I'm connecting members within that group, and they're seeing me as the connection point.
Yeah.
I enjoyed doing that.
Yeah.
But you have to go through the steps and the progression to understand what you like, what you don't like. It's like a kid. You come out of high school, what am I going to master in college? Well, you might get a year or two into getting your degree, and you understand that is not for you, right? You have to make a decision and reshape your destiny.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're doing as real estate agents. The reality is most people get into it because they think it's going to be easy, or, I know a lot of people, or I'm a bartender, or whatever the case may be, and I can just start selling houses.
Yeah.
It's not that easy, right? Like, you have to have a plan. You have to execute on that plan. You have to be disciplined about sticking with that plan when things get hard, because it inevitably will.
I agree with everything that you said. If you're out there right now and you are, whether you're in Nevada or you're somewhere, I think you're a very qualified individual to help somebody put that plan together. And I've seen you do it with so many people. So if you're in Nevada specifically, reach out to Colton. If you're across the country somewhere, you can still reach out to Colton, reach out to myself. We can get you plugged in with good leaders. Future vision, 5 years from now, I know you're 5 years older, but your kids are 5 years older, right? Yeah. And you said you got your broker's license in 2020?
2020.
2020, so 5 years virtually, what's the future vision? Where are you headed? Some of the goals. What are you excited about right now? I know you got a lot cooking. So
yeah, there's a lot cooking, but I'll keep it to this our context, what we're discussing. With PAC and the Nevada offices, for me it's quality over quantity, right? We could be the EXPs, the Reals of the world, and try to bring everybody in, which nothing wrong with that. However, I really want to enjoy the people that I'm working with.
That's the game,
right?
That's the whole game.
That's the game. Yeah, knowing that I'm making a difference. If if one of our agents reaches out to me, knowing that I can still be there, I can be present, I can help them accomplish whatever it is that they need to do. So really in 5 years, it's continuing to refine the culture.
Yeah.
Continue to refine the systems. If I'm putting it in numbers perspective, I would love to have 100 agents within our Nevada office.
Yeah.
And at least $100 million in GCI or production volume would be the goal there, which I think is low because our agents are doing more production on average. They come in, if they're not doing any deals or doing a couple deals a year, we usually, from everything I see, they're doubling, tripling their business, right? So, $1 million a year for 100 agents is very attainable.
Yeah.
But I think we can get that up.
Yeah.
Quite a bit higher from there.
Yeah, and I would agree. And it's interesting that as you share, we've seen, I've managed, I've done all that stuff with the mindset of, oh, look how many agents we have. And people, sometimes they'll tell me, oh my gosh, your agent count. I almost don't even like bringing it up.
Right.
Because to me, it's more about like, I want to work with people that I want to work with. And outside of that, like, there's an energy, there's a collaborative feeling. There is a, that goes behind the scenes, especially in the real estate world, of just being on the same page, being like-minded, realty with soul, people with vision, professional, accountable, knowledgeable, and really just working in that collaborative fashion. So I think it's great what you shared there, and extremely excited. I want to thank you for your time today.
I appreciate you coming out.
So thank you for your time today. I let Colton know, hey, I'm going to be in Nevada. I need to do an interview with you. He's like, print out these questions type of thing.
Let's do it. We had some technical difficulties.
It worked out.
Printers never seem to work.
But. It's great. So I'm excited for our listeners to hear this this interview, and thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much.
Any final thoughts?
we're doing a business planning session with some of our team today, which I'm super excited for.
That's gonna be great.
That'll be fantastic. So, I would say if you're in real estate and you're looking for a resource, not a recruiting presentation, but you need a friend, you need a mentor, happy to have a conversation with you, whether you're new in the business or not. Again, for me, it's about connecting with people, right? The better that agents in our market, whether they're with PAC or not,
right.
can be at providing better quality service to their clients, the better we're all going to be because of it. Yeah. It is a true collaboration, whether or not you're working within the same company or office or within the same marketplace, right? Because chances are, if you're doing any volume of business, we're going to run into each other at some point in time, and I'd rather have a friend on the other end of that line than not.
Yeah.
I would love to build a bridge, and outside of real estate, I'm in a number of different different avenues too. So would love to connect and see if there's anything we can collaborate on.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Colton Via out of our broker out of Nevada. Make it a great one.